Yeah, thank you so much. As we honor the national anthem of our great nation, Nigeria, as audience are arriving, we are going to move on to the program because we have limited time. We are going to invite the special guests to this event, starting from our able chairman, Engineer Mrs. Abiola Kosegbe, FNSE. So can you please signify by raising up your hand?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where my I have to find
Okay.
my.
We are seeing you. We are looking at you. Your hand is off. It's okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. So then also like to recognize our national chairman in the person of Engineer OES Ajani, FNSE. So if you are there, sir, you can please wave your hand so we can see you.
Thank you very much. I'm waving my hand physically. Can you see me?
Yes, you
See
can.
you.
Okay,
So
okay. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Okay.
So next on the maybe I should share my screen.
You're welcome.
So next on the people that will share. So we have 4 panelists here. Can you see my screen as well? So we have
Yes.
four.
Yeah, we can see
we have four panelists today. So we have Dr. Niraj Mani from South Africa. So Dr. Niraj is from South Africa, and before now, he has worked in various facets of life in agriculture, environment, and even in water sector. So he has been an alumni of University of KwaZulu-Natal and also London Business School. So before now, he has worked as the CEO, and also he has worked in various capacities. So permit me to welcome the Dr. Niraj Mani. So if you are here, please kindly raise up your hand, please.
Well, thank you.
Okay, hi.
Yeah. So next is Dr. Tanya Lichen. So Dr. Tanya presently works at the AI Center in Portugal. So he's presently the project officer in charge of all projects in AI Center. So AI Center is a consortium of various countries in that relates to the Atlantic Ocean. So and also it is glad to also mention here that Nigeria is also a statutory member of the AI Center. So Dr. Tanya finishes a PhD at the University of Maine, and she has a lot of experience in biodiversity, nature, and as well molecular sciences. So Dr. Tanya, can you please wave your hand if you're around?
Hello. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
So the next person we are going to recognize is Dr. Vishwas Vidyaraya. Sorry for the for not pronouncing the name very well. Yeah, right. Is a renowned business person and scientist, particularly in the area of circular economy, green recovery, and waste management. So permit me to introduce Dr. Vishwas Vidyara from Colombia.
Thank you.
Hi.
Yeah. So the next person we're going to introduce is Dr. Said Matemilola. Dr. Said Matemilola is a Nigerian, however, is affiliated at the Brandenburg University of Technology in Germany. So he has wide interdisciplinary experience in the area of environmental sciences, urban and environmental planning, then policy and environmental legal studies. So permit me to introduce Dr. Said Matemilola. If he's here, maybe he should recognize by waving his hand. Okay, I think he's on the way. So yeah, these are the panelists that we'll be having today. So before wasting our time, we are going to move to the next program. So calling on our noble chairman, engineer Mrs. Abiola Kosegbe, FNSE, to give us a welcome remark. You're welcome, ma.
Thank you very much. Greetings to everyone and good evening. To all our respected great leaders, environmentalists, and their friends on this auspicious occasion of the World Environment Day 2020. All protocols duly observed. My name is Engineer Abiola Kosegbe. I am the chairperson of the Nigerian Institution of Environmental Engineers, Lagos chapter. And I'm quite sure that we all know about the World Environment Day. It is important to understand the objectives of celebrating this day. The World Environment Day is commemorated every year on June 5th. It was instituted in 1972 by the United Nations General Assembly. For the first time in the year 1973, the World Environment Day was celebrated with the aim of taking positive steps to protect the environment from polluting the earth and to inspire people around the world in this direction. Our precious biodiversity is being lost because people the world over have not advocated enough and acted for a healthier environment. From the beach cleanups to mass tree planting, to ban of single-use plastic bags, management of declining wetlands, we still all have a lot to do. Hence, the Nigerian Society of Engineers, in respect of the Nigerian Institution of Environmental Engineers Lagos chapter, is holding this public discourse with the Global World Environment Day theme, biodiversity, and the topic, time for nature. Of course, we have 3 international panelists that we have invited to actually whet our appetites on business, scientific, and engineering perspective. Our 4th panelist is from Lagos State and has been invited to run us through the policy and regulatory aspects of the topic. Our distinguished national chairman, Engineer OES Ajani, FNSE, is also here with us as a keynote speaker to open the talk for the day on this virtual platform. This is because we all stand in solidarity with those suffering from the global pandemic. We need to protect the sick, the poor, and the vulnerable from the worst ravages of this disease. Let's make time for nature our norm. Thank you all as I welcome you to this public discourse to commemorate this year's World Environment Day. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Chairman, Chairperson. So without wasting time, we'll move to the next step, which is the keynote speech. So I'll be calling on our noble father, Engineer Ajani OES, so our FNSE. So to please move forward, to step forward for the keynote speech.
Okay, thank you, my people. Let me recognize all the panelists. I congratulate our able chairman, Engineer Mrs. Abiola Kosegbe, FNSE, and very soon FNIEE, because she decided to be given that position. She has been performing very, very well. I congratulate all the organizers, Lagos State Chapter, It's a chapter to beat in NIE. So congratulations once again for the job well done. On behalf of my president, NSE president, Engineer Babagana Mohammed FNSE, I say a big thanks for all the effort you have put into making this to happen. On Friday, the national body launched their own, and all other chapters are beginning. I think this is the second chapter that I'm sharing. I was in Port Harcourt, and I'm now in Lagos. It is my pleasure to be here at Lagos NIE chapter celebrating year 2020. Theme of this year is time for the nature. And this year's World Environment Day has been hosted in Colombia in partnership with the Germany to raise awareness about things that we should employ how environmental engineers can contribute to the sustainable environment. I feel this is an important thing to do, and we must jointly do it together. And that's why
I think we have lost Engineer Johnny there.
am I on?
You're on. So
Okay. Nature is essential to every aspect of human life and well-being. People are taking more from nature than it has to give. And as a result, we are putting our own life online if we are not very careful. It is time for nature. Let us protect our biodiversity. Nature fills our souls, provides inspiration, joy, peace, contemplation, and solace. Nature is essential for our quality of life and provide both material goods and non-material support, such as cultural services. Nature is our mother. Environment is our mother. We must take care of this or this thing, and I wish all of us to do.
yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that wonderful keynote speech. As our father said, nature is our mother. So, but we don't know the father. So we'll move to the next stage, which is one of the reasons why we are here. The first speaker that I would like to call will be Dr. Neeraj Mani. So Dr. Neeraj Mani, as I mentioned, is the CEO of Munch Innovation Pty from South Africa. And as I said, he has worked in various capacities and in various sectors, especially in the environmental sector, water sector, and even agricultural sector. So Dr. Neeraj Mani, please, you have the floor. Thank you.
Okay, so afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I just want to share my screen with you.
Yes, yeah, you can share.
Okay.
Okay, and do you see the screen?
Coming on. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, and you can hear me. You can hear me clearly, eh?
Yes.
Yeah, we can.
Okay,
We can hear
brilliant. Okay, so the topic is about the call to nature, and the segment that I'm speaking to you about is on business, the business perspective. So I wanted to share with you on the first slide, the question that we normally would want to ask ourselves is, where do we stand as business? So we as business, we need to take some action to actively restore our ecosystems that we are continuously impacting, and we need to start wisely managing our economic benefit from all of us that are involved in the environment and in nature. So if you look at the business perspective, one needs to look at what is actually nature doing. And in this regard, it's actually creating both a loss and opportunity for business and for all of us entrepreneurs as well. So what does this mean? So if we look at it from a loss perspective, the more natural materials we consume for manufacturing, the less will be available for the future. Secondly, if we continue to look at the loss, the greater the impact to the ecosystem in which we derive all these materials from, we are going to experience a greater linkage and dependency that is going to be destroyed, ultimately meaning that there's going to be nothing left for us to be able to extract out of the environment. Thirdly, if you look at the issues around land degradation, the destroyment of biomes, the impact on biodiversity, and a balance, all are growing challenges, and they continue to grow on a daily basis. And we often see this around the world and in various communities. And if you read about it in the media, you find that it's a huge growing problem on a daily basis, and a number of businesses are impacted by this. But these losses also result in serious impacts, largely through climate change, global pandemics, alien invasion, displacement of communities, and a complete breakdown of the natural value chains. If we continue looking at it from a benefit point of view, so what does the benefit or the opportunity create for us? So it allows for us, or for nature to function on its own, which will create a further benefit for us to be able to use into the future. It also then creates a natural system. So nature functions on its own natural system, which then in turn functions in the ecosystem. And then the other benefit is that work with nature to find solutions and uncover opportunities. So if we try to follow this route, we could easily try to reduce the impact, and the opportunities will start to surface. As business, and particularly around the sustainable economy, we're not doing enough to save the environment. We are spending too much of time to look at cheap products that has far more impact to nature, whereas we could be looking at largely more products that are less impactful and add more value to what we're trying to achieve. And you would also find that through the value chains that are taking place, that prices are being recalculated according to value. You'll find that people are prepared to pay more for products that have got more significant economic savings, but also environmental and social savings. You'll also find that when capital or investments are made into projects, that they're starting to flow into the right areas for the right spend. Whereas previously, and still in some current circumstances, you find that money has been channeled into the wrong directions. Hence, we have some of the impacts that we're experiencing currently. Thirdly, benchmarks are being set for all of those in the value chains to adhere to. And that's largely through sustainability systems. And companies are starting to use these rating indices to track the progress and the value add through the value chains. So when I talk about sustainability systems and rating indices, we're talking about things like ISO, accreditation, food safety, and compliance. So those things are carrying a lot more weight. And also the issue around law and compliance is also some of the benchmarks that are put into place. Progressive improvement in each part of the economic value chain does create new opportunities for business. And we've got to look at it through through a wider lens to understand how do we actually derive real benefit from this. So the road for business is moving towards sustainability. As you would have noticed in your own country and in other parts of the world, companies have spent a lot of time and money on the operational part of their businesses to get it environmentally compliant and to try and reduce their footprint and to reduce the amount of waste that's being generated and the waste that they actually that they produce on a daily basis. And when the whole drive towards sustainability and trying to reduce the impact to nature, we found that a number of global companies started trying to change the way in which they operated their businesses. But the focus has started to shift, and the focus has now been on how to cut costs and what other mechanisms or methods can be put into place, or what other alternative products can be found that could alleviate some of the pressure that's being experienced by some of these companies. And you would find that there's been a lot of focus on research and development, but there's also now a fundamental shift towards innovation. And the aspect is, how do we do things better and how do we make them smarter? Things like the fourth industrial revolution, technology, nanotechnology, and a lot of the digital introductions, and of course the big drive towards innovation is starting to steer the way thinking is taking place in the business world, and how we're going to try and revolutionize the way some of the things are being done. If you look at waste as an example, whereas previously it was dumped into landfills and into dumps, people now recognize the economic value that's in waste and are now starting to try and recover various parts of the waste stream to be either reused back into the production environment or back into a different process, or to completely create a new product. So how will business reduce cost and impact? And how will it reach the goal of sustainability? These are the questions that often businesses are challenged with or faced with on a regular basis. And it's important to note that sustainability will be the norm of any business going forward. It's not a negotiable, it's not debatable, but it is how business will function in the future. So one of the other important aspects for business is to actually do an introspection. And by this, you need to understand that nature does provide us as business with capital that is available for us to be able to use but not abuse. As businesses, we need to preserve and look at ways to enhance that capital so that it helps us in our business development, and also in turn we need to look at how that capital can be efficiently used to expand the footprint of that ecosystem that is going to benefit everyone through the use of a particular product or ingredient into the future. You would also want to create a sustainable business solution that is mutual benefit for all the stakeholders. That is the business, the environment, and the end consumer. Leadership must be future ready. Businesses does require leaders that have a commitment to the process through policy support and genuine knowledge sharing as well. And leaders need to be consultative and collaborative with their teams and also with government and stakeholders. So the business of the future, what does it look like? So it should be a mutually beneficial business model. It should be a business that's able to apply the circular economy as part of its approach towards an integral, sustainable business model. It should have strategic focus on being adaptive to changing environmental conditions. It should be a business that is highly resilient, a business that supports local communities in the environment, with a push to also incorporate rural economies into that model. A business that is resourceful with nature, but one that is very, very responsible. And business practice, processes and methods will require change to one that is less impact and more progressive. So my business success and its dependencies. So the question is, if nature is impacted and the elements such as water, air, raw materials, and communities, then how will my business be impacted in some way, resulting in us not being able to produce a product? In turn, we cannot supply or grow a microeconomy. So you could just sit back and think about what that impact is likely to look like if we continue to practice in the current way that we are. So it is critical for us to work as a collective and to think and plan much more broadly. And we need to be able to challenge and test our thinking and actions so that we reduce the harm that we're currently causing. It's also important that our communication must be clear to all of those that are involved in this entire process. And our intentions and desired outcomes should always be transparent to all stakeholders. So these are quite important dependencies, because if we don't have all of these sort of in sync, we could actually jeopardize our strategy or our intended business model. So just to put it into perspective, as a business, what does this market look like if you had to go into it? And you would see that you need to understand what are the changing conditions that businesses would experience. You will need to take advantage of the situation. You also need to understand that sustainability is the new normal way of doing business. And it's also important to understand, as a business, how do you quantify that economic benefit? Because as a business, you want to know, how do I make money and how do I become more profitable? But nature has those answers available to you, and you need to actually take advantage of it, but without further impact and without further risk to sustaining a future environment. You also need to continue creating new opportunities. It's important that, as an example, with the current COVID situation, you need to look for the opportunities in the current chaos. And that will force you to reevaluate your approach and your thinking to how you run your business or how you set it up by not impacting on the environment. So a green business, what does it actually mean for me? It means that I need to become a catalyst for innovation. So I need to start thinking a lot more. And you need to create a lot of opportunity in order to create wealth or to create money and profit. And those opportunities should have a fine balance to it. You need to unlock new opportunities, and you need to continuously look at that. And then the last point there is that you need to be part of a collaborative team. You need to work in collaboration with a number of people. So the new pockets of growth, and these would include incorporating the green and nature into your business, is not a new assignment. It is a new opportunity to become a futuristic business. You need to create a business opportunity of the current model. You need to be able to influence change. You need to search for investment value that nature has given us. Finding common ground unpacks new ways in the field, but allows us to use a multiple prong approach towards sustainability. You need to find and identify partners that will help you to progressively move forward, but in the right green spirit. And then I just want to thank you for the opportunity to be able to present my business perspective case to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Niraj. It's really a pleasure, and it's really an interesting presentation. So we are going to collate all the questions, and we have a main section for question and answer. So permit me to introduce the next speaker, which is Dr. Tanya. So Dr. Tanya works with the Ear Center, and before now, she graduated from the University of Maine, where she did a PhD in biochemistry and molecular biology, and she has wide experience in biodiversity, nature, and sciences. So this evening, she's going to give us the scientific perspective of the theme of this program. And as I mentioned, Air Center is an intergovernmental organization where Nigeria is also a member. So after the presentation, we are going to have a section for networking, so where you can meet her and other panelists. Dr. Tanya, please have the floor.
Thank you, Isa. Thank you for the nice introduction. Let me share my screen. Can you see?
Yes.
Yes.
So again, thank you, Isa, for the nice introduction. And thank you very much for the invitation to participate in this panel. Thank you to the organizers of this event. It's an honor to be here and to share the floor with all the panelists that are here. So, like it has already been mentioned, this year's World Environmental Day theme is Time for Nature, and it shines a spotlight on biodiversity. So I think that we all know that biodiversity is vital to us, but do we really connect the dots? Do we really connect, for example, trees and the pure air that we breathe, since trees and plants produce oxygen and absorb air pollution? Do we really connect that we need to protect pollinating insects in order to have fruits or nuts? Are we aware that we need to preserve coral reefs? We need to have healthy coral reefs or mangroves or sand dunes to make our coastline protected from flooding, protected from natural hazard events such as tsunamis? Are we aware that proteins produced by these bacteria found in deep ocean, they help us in disease testing such as COVID-19? So all these examples shows that nature have countless products and interactions that contribute to a very balanced and healthy, sustainable planet for all sorts of life, including us humans. Therefore, therefore, if we protect biodiversity, we protect life. And when we don't protect biodiversity, we may have disastrous outcomes, such as hunger. For example, overfishing. Overfishing does not respect fish life cycles. It doesn't allow for the fish populations to reproduce and replenish its stocks. So that leads to fish depletion and so no food. But when we protect biodiversity, we gain a lot of benefits. And I chose this an example, these beavers that were introduced in the forest of Dean in UK. This forest is less than 200 kilometers from London. Beavers were reintroduced in the river in 2015 after 400 years of extinction in the wild. And this led attract people to the region, so it attracted tourism. It also gave opportunities for school activities, for example. And then these beavers, they build dams, and dams protect the region from flooding. And these dams also create wetland habitats for other species, for different species of fish, amphibians, aquatic birds. But it is indeed a great challenge to find a balance between protecting nature and economical profits. We can, for example, we can't tell fishermen whose livelihood depend on their activities to just suddenly stop fishing, right? They alternatives. They need to be informed about the problem. They need to be involved in solution, and they need to be heard. And when I say this for fishermen, I also say this for other activities such as farmers. We cannot tell farmers to just stop using these pesticides that are using to kill an insect that is destroying their crops. If they cannot use these pesticides, they won't have crops. How can they survive, right? So it is a challenge, but it's possible to make plans that respect both biodiversity and communities and economy. And just like Dr. Niee said previously, these plans need to be multidisciplinary. It has to take into account indigenous knowledge on nature. It needs to have knowledge from science studies to understand the problem. It needs technology and innovation to find solutions. Economy studies to understand profits and losses. Governments to implement regulations, and many other disciplines and experts. So it is a challenge, but an equilibrium can and should be achieved. There are several successful examples, but I will talk about the case of the North Atlantic right whale. This whale, as you can see, is an odd whale. It has these white callosities in its face, which is the pattern is distinct to each individual, so biologists use these patterns to identify this species. This species was a target species for whalers in the past because they swim very slow, so they are very easy to catch, and they have this very thick layer of fat, so once they were killed, they wouldn't sink so easily. So because of this, it was brought to the brink of extinction, but people started to realize that there was a steep decline in their population. When this became very clear, the whole world banned whaling of this species in 1937, so more than 80 years ago. And since then, the population has been slowly recovered, very slowly. And why very slowly? These species swim along the North Atlantic coast from the southern waters of the US to Canada. So it's a very busy traffic lane. And so these whales are highly threatened by ship collisions and entanglements in fishing gear, such as lobster traps. The lobster industry is very intense in the north. So I have here a cartoon so that you can see how the whales can be entangled in lobster traps. You see that there's a cage for the lobsters, and then there's a rope that connects the cage to a buoy so that lobstermen can locate where these cages are. So measures have been taken to slow down, for example, vessels, and also some changes in these lobster traps, but this has not been enough. And there has been a big pressure from biologists and ecologists to reduce lobster industry, but as you may understand, it has been received with negative reactions from the industry. However, there are some areas in the north that have implemented seasonal closures. So they close for 3 months, and lobstermen cannot do their activities during that period. And so there was a study on the impacts of these closures, and they have realized that actually these seasonal closures support higher profits and long-term sustainability for the lobster. So at first sight, you can understand that there's a negative impact. So if lobstermen do not fish, they don't have income. But along the years, as these closures protect the species, protect biodiversity, and respect their natural cycles, it actually benefits people. During these closures, lobsters can have time to build up, and also these contribute to the lobster reproduction. So it's a win-win situation. Whales are protected and lobsters have time to grow and reproduce. There's higher profits, and so it's good for everyone. And this leads to my last few slides, I mean. saying the importance of including natural capital into economic plans, which has already been mentioned in the previous talk. So there's a need to have a measure of the monetary value of natural goods and services that benefit people, such as give a monetary value to healthy food stocks, to coastal and flood protection, to clean air or clean water. And then this is not new. This has been talked about for over two decades, but it's really important right now because during this pandemic, the economy has stopped and so this gives us a chance to change. And right now, some countries have already entered the confinement phase. So as they entered the confinement phases, economies are revived. And so now is the right time to make up for past omissions and rebuild them in a way that takes nature's true value into account. So here I have some, a list of articles that if you're interested in looking for, I took some information from these articles if you want to know more details about what I spoke about. And finally, thank you. Thank you for your attention. If you are interested about the Air Center, please visit our website. You can also follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter, and you can also contact me. We are very open to new collaborations in projects related to the environment. Also, just to say it again, what Isa said, we do have an Air Center office in Nigeria, in Abuja, and this was led by Dr. Asma Ibrahim. And so we already started activities in working towards new collaborations and projects.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tanya. Can you hear me? Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Hello? Can you hear me? Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Tanya, for that wonderful presentation. Like she said, it is high time we monetize our natural resources. So without wasting time, I will move to the next presentation, and I would like to share my screen. So we have Dr. Vishwas Vidyara from Colombia. Before now, Dr. Vidya studied in Germany. He had his master's degree in sanitary engineering and waste management in Germany. And after then, he has been the technical director of Value Investment Company in Colombia. So he has been in charge of various projects in Colombia, and is a member of ISWA, and also a co-founder of various research groups in Colombia and in South America. And also, he has a lot of patents on energy management and waste management and environmental products. So after this program, after this meeting, you have the chance to also network with Dr. Vishwas on any opportunities you can harness, collaborating between South America and Nigeria. So Dr. Vishwas, you have the floor. Thank you.
Very much. So I'll just share my screen. Yeah. Thank you very much, first of all, for inviting me from the Nigerian Institute of Environmental Engineers, and and also my good friend Yusuf, who we met and we worked together in Texas for some time. So thanks a lot. And so today I want to talk about green recovery and waste management, because the whole world right now is in the crisis, and we are somehow restarting the economy. A lot of countries are opening up, and a lot of things are going to change. So my specialization is on waste management. I've been working in South Asia to Germany, and right now in Latin America. And this is what I want to start with. So this is the current state of global environment, right? The climate. Now, we have been having United Nations Summit year on year to discuss how we're going to, fight the climate change. So we've started from Rio, then Kyoto, Copenhagen, Doha, and even the Paris Summit. But every summit, there has been a failure on parts of governments across the world because we have not met our goals. Today, if you see, the global warming rise we are about to reach about 3.3 to 3.4 degrees centigrade. So what does this mean? For example, if the global warming raises by about 1.5 degrees by the year 2050, we are going to have a lot of problems with our food production, coral reefs. And when we are talking about 2 degrees, we are talking about melting of the Greenland ice sheet, which is one of the largest ice sheets in the world, glaciers in the world. So this will lead to sea level rises. And then above this will lead to destruction of forests, global mass extinction. So we're going to have a lot of problem with migrations. And you might realize in a lot of countries, especially in the developing world, it can be in Asia or in Africa, we are seeing severe events. It can be extreme rainfall or extreme drought, right? So we've been seeing these results. Now, the best case scenario for us is to reach 1.5 degree. We're still going to have some damage, but this is what we need to do. So how do we do it? So this is on the climate CO2 or the global warming front. On the health front, we have had a lot of pandemics in the past, but this one right now, the COVID situation has affected the whole world. And what we know from this situation is none of the countries in the world, no matter how rich or how poor they are, is resilient to a disaster like this. Nobody in the world is able to manage the situation well. So the next crisis which is coming is on climate change. We are already seeing the effects. So it's important that we gear up to face the next challenge and start adapting our practices. And coming to economy, right? This is a projection from the International Monetary Fund last month. And a crisis like this has put the whole economy globally on halt. If you see, the global economy is going to be -3% this year. The advanced countries are going to be -6.1%, and the developing countries are -1%. Of course, we will recover, but every decimal or every small drop in percentage like this, it will mean loss of thousands of jobs and millions of people, coming under poverty. This is the example of extreme poverty. So the extreme poverty basically was on a tangent reducing. It was supposed to be about 7.1%, but the crisis like this put 40 million people additionally under poverty. So the poverty is going to go up this year, right? And this is because none of us are resilient for handling such big crisis. And coming to equality, a lot of our cities, we are focusing so much on economy, but we are not focusing on sustainable growth. A lot of our cities are right now problems with air pollution and water stress. 1 out of 9 people don't have access to water, and 2.3 billion people in the world still lack access to clean sanitation. And all the tropical countries you see, the ones in red are the ones which are going to be most affected. And all these are linked. Then coming to waste. We are drowning in waste. The left you see is a mountain of landfill in India, in the capital city. On the right you see is a 1.6 million square kilometer patch in the Pacific in no man's land. This is not close to any country. It's right middle of the ocean. So all the plastics are somehow ending in the rivers and then in the seas. So we need to change the way we are living, the way our countries are run, the way our economies are run, if we want to, cut the global warming and also live sustainably and well. And waste is a very interesting issue because it has a very strong correlation with the economy of the country. As the economy of the countries grows, the waste, this is kilogram per capita per year, also grows. So, a lot of these developing countries whom we are talking today, in the next 10, 20 years, we're going to have megacities in Africa, in Asia, in Latin America, and all of us are going to produce more waste. So that means there's more stress on the infrastructure to do more treatment, more collection, and we need to prepare for this. This is a very common scenario across the world. This is an example of one of the towns in the Pacific coast of Colombia in the Amazon region, because very small towns usually don't have good collection or treatment infrastructure, and these end up going to the river and then eventually to the sea. There was an interesting study that done a few years back on world's biggest dump sites, 50 world's biggest dump sites. So now there's a difference between dump site and a landfill, right? Dump site is something which is uncontrolled. You don't do leachate treatment, you don't do gas capture, you just dump the waste. And you see most of the biggest dump sites are in the developing world. It can be South Asia or in Africa or in South America, and some in the Caribbean. For example, Nigeria has about 6 large dump sites. So it's very important that we close these dump sites, because dump sites, even the existing dump sites, are a big health concern. They're continuously contaminating your groundwater, your air quality, and indirectly affecting the health of all of us. And this is just a perspective on how the change is going to be, for example, in Africa. Now, this is in 2012 in 1,000 tons per year, and this is in 2025. Now, if you see, the darker blue which means more waste. 3 countries in Africa especially are going to be very critical for the way, for the future of waste management. Egypt, Nigeria, and South Africa, which are going to be very critical. And the waste composition, I mean, of course, this is a very broad perspective, but it is mostly organic in nature. If you go to some of the cities, not just in Africa, but also in Asia and even in Latin America, if you reach up to 70 to 80% of waste is organic in nature, which is very easily manageable. And within Africa, so this is an example of how big the variation is. This is a kilogram of waste per person per day. So this is, for example, Lagos, Nigeria is one of the highest, it's almost 1 kilogram per person per day. And Ethiopia, we have something around 0.3. So the systems will also vary between cities. It's very diverse. And this is the scenario of what is happening today. These are all information from the United Nations Environment latest outlook on Africa's waste management. So the recycling is still very small. It's about 4%, but open dumping and landfill or open burning is contributing about 80% of the waste management practices. But all these problems we have, but there's a huge potential, especially after the COVID crisis, when the whole world is looking at the economic recovery. It's important to go with green recovery. As the first speaker, Neeraj Mani was saying, it's very important that sustainability is there in every part of our business. It is happening. The whole world is looking for a green growth because the next wave of crisis is going to be climate change. I mean, there's going to be $100 trillion boost across the world, and Europe, if just announced a $750 billion green recovery. What this means is everything that you do is somehow going to be sustainable. It's going to lead to reduced carbon emissions. There's going to be circular economy, recycling. Right. So on waste management, there are 2 things we need to look. First, on the material part, on the material side, it's important to create or use materials which are recyclable, compostable, reusable, or which are very sustainable in nature. We should get away from single-use plastics. I mean, it doesn't make sense to drill oil, take it out, ship all the way across, create a single-use plastic like a straw, use it in 1 minute and throw it, which goes and ends up in the sea. It doesn't make sense at all. We need to change this way of living. Here are some examples of alternate materials made using mushrooms, or cotton, which is grown in a lab. So these are very interesting examples, and there are hundreds of examples like this. Even I think Neeraj's company is also doing edible packaging. So that's very interesting as well. So coming from having worked in South Asia to Europe to Latin America, what I've seen is across the developing world, it's very important to look at waste management from a decentralized perspective, because it works. These are 2 examples. Sorry, there's a spelling mistake here, I guess. But for example, this is from Recyclables in Nigeria, which a lot of you might know. And on the left is a company from Guinea. A good friend of mine is working there on decentralized waste collection system, where they're looking at small blocks or neighborhoods. They're collecting waste separately, organic and inorganic, and they're converting it into fertilizer or compost. And the recyclables, because it is separated very well, so you can sell it. So you're creating so many local jobs. And secondly, you're integrating the informal sector, who are a major part of the waste management infrastructure. This is an example of a project in Colombia for about 40,000 houses. Sorry, this is in Spanish, but what this means is here first at the building level, we put in a good separation system. The organic waste was treated with biogas plants to produce gas. The remaining waste was sent into a classification center where they used to separate paper, plastic, and everything, all other recyclables. So the biogas was used for producing energy. So all the schools, hospitals, and other common community facilities had free energy. And the recyclables are a source of income for the people there. So the project creates over 150 local jobs. This is some examples from India. This is at the house level. For example, in the city of Bangalore in south of India, which is about 12 million people. Now, because once the waste production went up, the municipalities didn't have a lot of money to, put in treatment system or collection system. It's very expensive. So they said every house or every apartment should manage their own organic waste. Now, this is a norm. This is mandatory. So everybody started doing this compost at home and using it for green spaces and parks. This is at the apartment level, on the rooftops, on the terraces. So you can start doing composting if you have space. If you don't have space, you can do biogas plants. But then what this also means is, let's look at Lagos, for example. If we are talking about 5 million houses or commercial establishments, you have 5 million opportunities for business just in Lagos alone, right? So this is a huge, huge market apart from being sustainable. This is an example of a campus with about 3,000 employees. The food courts, the food waste basically goes into biogas plants like this, and the gas is pumped back into the restaurants for cooking. And this is for the organic waste, which is about 60–70%. So once you separate that waste, the rest is very good quality paper, plastic, which is highly recyclable. These are some decentralized sorting stations where you have a simple conveyor belt and you bring in people to separate the waste into different categories. And these plastics or paper can go into recycling industries. So there's a huge amount of value within the waste as well. This is how a decentralized system looks like, and these are in some examples from some parts of India. And while you do all this, there's still going to be a lot of waste which is not segregated or non-recyclable, or you might need some centralization. So on the left, you see a huge 400 ton per day organic composting facility. If you have large vegetable markets in the city, you can build in plants like this. On the right, you see is it's a large biogas plant where they're taking food waste from all the vegetable markets in the city, and they're converting into CNG, compressed natural gas, for running the buses. So you're also saving on diesel, on transport. You're having the second income, which is the waste management cost, and it is sustainable. Of course, this is an image of Bogota landfill, which produces about 7,000 tons per day. The landfill cell has good gas capture, and they're using it for production of electricity. So there's also, we need to find a balance between decentralized and centralized. And just to conclude, we need to be prepared for the next climate crisis. It's important to adopt circular economy in every material that we use. We need to manage our waste sustainably. It's important to do it locally because we'll create local jobs and also improve our public health. Thank you very much. And this is my contact. You can connect with me on LinkedIn and also write to me, and we can look at opportunities to collaborate as well.
Yeah, thank you so much, Doctor, for this wonderful presentation. Yeah, so like Dr. Vishwas said, it is important to go to the level of circular economy, linking circular economy with waste management, then promoting public health. That is a wonderful remark from Dr. Vishwas. So without wasting time, we are going to move to the next panelist, which is Dr. Saheed Matemilola. So Saheed Matemilola is from Nigeria, and he has his master's degree at the Brandenburg University of Technology in Germany. And before now, he was a diaspora expert from the German government to Nigeria to contribute on knowledge dissemination at the University of Ibadan and Pan-African University in Ibadan. And his area of expertise includes life cycle assessment, housing, energy, climate combination, sustainable community development, public engagement, and environmental planning. So Dr. Saeed will be discussing about the policy and the regulatory perspective of nature, especially coming down to our local environment, Lagos. So Dr. Saeed, you have the floor. Thank you. Dr. Saeed?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you very much for having me. I'd like to share my screen now. So we'll be looking at the topic biodiversity, the policy and regulatory perspective, as has been mentioned by the moderator. So basically, I'll try to tailor this discussion towards the local perspective of Nigeria and probably Lagos State, since this is expected to be the key audience for this event. So, as a form of background, generally, we've seen from the previous panelist presentations that global biological resources are very, very important tool for economic and social development of the world. However, various human activities have become very big threats to a lot of the animal and plant species, and this has become a very, very big problem all over the world. So, however, United Nations Environmental Program, UNEP, when after discovering this, the trend of this challenge, they summoned a group of experts and required them to really come up with a framework for the conservation of the global biological biological resources. And this actually yielded good results, and that led to the adoption of the Convention on Biological Diversity in May 1992 in Nairobi. And a month after that, in June, the convention was put up for signature at the Rio de Janeiro at the Earth Summit. So, but because of the level of acceptance that this particular convention received, within a year, there were already over 168 signatures already. So, and that led to the convention eventually was entered into force in December 1993. So, and I mean, since then, you know, the convention has played major role in the conservation of biological resources all over the world, with party members localizing this convention into their local situations. And Nigeria, of course, is also a party to this convention on biodiversity. So there are so many other conventions also, which Nigeria have also been party to, some before even the Convention on Biodiversity, and a lot of them after this particular convention. And of course, one of those other international agreements is the Cartagena Protocol on Biosafety. this particular protocol is an offshoot of the Convention on Biodiversity, actually, and it was based on the precautionary principle. The aim of the convention, this particular protocol, is to ensure that countries are able to determine and decide what kind of genetic resources are being imported into their country, so that they can be able to determine or to be able to balance the public health and safety against the economic benefits from GMOs, particularly. So, and this was the basis upon which the Cartagena Protocol on Biosafety was established, was adopted in 2002. There was also the Nagoya Protocol in Japan in 2010, which is also an offshoot of the Convention on Biodiversity. And this particular protocol was particularly aimed at ensuring that countries have fair and equitable access to the genetic resources, and they can also benefit equitably from the utilization of these genetic resources. So, I mean, on the African continent, there were also a lot of other conventions which Nigeria also became party to, and one of them is the African Convention on Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources in Algiers, Algeria, and that was in 1974, and this particular convention was actually reviewed in 2017. So, in order for Nigeria to be able to localize and fulfill its commitment to all these international agreements, Nigeria also developed, enacted a couple of legislations and came up with different policies and institutional arrangements to ensure that these international agreements are properly localized. So, and one of such enactments is that of Endangered Species Act in 1983. There was also the National Policy on Conservation of Biological Diversity in 1999. So, also, I mean, because in Nigeria, environment is on the concurrent list, and so it means also states can also adjudicate over issues of the environment. So, of course, Lagos State and other states have also come up with different legislations and policies to ensure the proper localization of these conventions in their states. And one of that in Lagos State is the Lagos State Park and Garden Agency. And this is a particular agency that is responsible for the regulation of parks and management of parks and reserves in Lagos State. So there are a multitude of other legislations also from Lagos State and Nigeria. So, I mean, just for the sake of time. So, however, having become party to this multitude of international agreements and coming up with different legislations locally to ensure their proper localization, what is the situation of biodiversity in Nigeria, and particularly in Lagos State? So, Nigeria actually occupies a very, very unique geographic location on the African map, and this actually makes Nigeria to have a wide range of ecological and climatic zones. And as you can see from the map, there are a couple of ecological zones that are there within Nigeria. And I mean, these are the major ecological zones. And you can see Lagos is basically a coastal floodplain ecosystem. And as we may know, floodplain ecosystems are very, very vital and they house actually the one of the most diverse diverse species on the planet. So it has the potential to house a lot of biological resources and diverse biological resources. So in Nigeria generally, biodiversity has been a very, very important source of food and raw materials, and has been providing a lot of genetic materials for agriculture and medicine, top of in pharmacy and in pharmaceutical industry. And of course, it also holds a lot of, there are a lot of materials used for aesthetic purposes, and it also holds a lot of cultural value in Nigeria and even in Lagos State. So unfortunately, unlike many other African countries, where biological, the conservation of biodiversity has become a very, very important component of the economy, such as in the southern part of Africa and some eastern African countries, where ecotourism has been booming a lot. And even in some Asian countries, the economy of some countries like Nepal depends so much on ecotourism, and this is one of the important benefits that can be derived from the conservation of biological resources. So, but unfortunately, Nigeria really does not really value the importance of the biological diversity, and I mean, in that sense, Nigeria does not really invest so much into the conservation of these biological resources. So, what are the key drivers of loss of biodiversity in Nigeria, and particularly in Lagos State? So one of the key problems that have been identified by various scholars is the problem of inadequate policies and problem of weak institutional capacity. So this is one of the biggest problem actually that environment generally faces in many developing countries. I mean, not only in Nigeria. So, I mean, most of the economic policies are not actually, they do not sufficiently consider environmental implications of those policies before taking actions. And this, at the end of the day, when these policies are being implemented, takes a very, very big toll and have big implications on the environment. Talk of policies that has to do with, especially the mining industry and forest exploitation, So, I mean, we know Nigeria depends a lot on oil and gas, and, there has been a lot of problems from oil spillage and gas flaring, destroying the ecosystem, making the ecosystem inhabitable for the species. So there's also the problem of weak environmental policies. The environmental policies that are even there are not robust enough to deal with the ecological problems that we have. So, and these are some of the problems. The policies are not really robust enough to deal with the challenges. There's also the problem of weak implementation and enforcement. This can be blamed on a couple of factors, maybe lack of adequate capacity of the regulators, for instance, or lack of proper adequate tools or technology to carry out their assignments. And of course, finance is a very, very big problem generally. Another big driver is the habitat depletion and overexploitation of the natural resources. So, and one of the key factors here is the farming method. There is So there, generally all over the world now, there is, I mean, the world is going very, very intensive in terms of agriculture, and we use a lot of pesticide and fertilizers and a couple of other substances, which when run off into water bodies, causes eutrophication, and and all this affects the species in this particular habitat, and it's been causing the extinction of certain species also. So the extractive industry, like I've mentioned before, has been a very big problem for the ecosystem generally, and also deforestation is, of course, a very big player also in the destruction of habitat. So poverty and population growth, I mean, another very big problem. With population growth, you know, there is need for more resources to take care of the population. There is need for housing and urbanization and things like that. So people need shelter, and they need more land to take care of these needs. They need more food. They need to reclaim more forest land for agriculture. They need to, so all this takes toll on the biological diversity. And without proper planning, these kind of issues will generally continue to degenerate the ecosystem, the ecology. So these are a few recommendations that I believe can really put the nation, and particularly Lagos State, on the right footing again. And first is the need to improve the management of protected areas, such as national parks and nature reserves, you know, because they play a very, very important role in the conservation of biodiversity. These are the places where you find a lot of these species, especially those that are going into extinction, and you know, so it's really important that we improve the management of our national parks and nature reserves. And we have a couple of them scattered all over the country. And also we have the Lekki, the one in Lekki as well. So another important recommendation is the capacity building for the regulators. This is very, very important because there's need for the officials, institutional officials, to be trained and retrained. Some of even the officials, some of them do not even have background in ecology, and you find them carrying out activities that are very, very relevant to their background. So there's no way they will be able to carry out this assignment effectively without having proper training and retraining to enable them, and also providing them with essential tools and technology to be able to carry out their assignments efficiently. There's also need to empower the local communities around these reserves, for example, so that it can become better integrated into the conservation program, because they are neighbors to the reserves, and sometimes if they are not properly integrated into the conservation plan, they can actually be the tool for compromising a lot of the plan for the conservation. So there's also need for improvement of the inter-ministerial and agency cooperation, so that there can be more efficient consideration of environment and ecology in the planning. For instance, when the Ministry of Petroleum Resources is planning its program, if it carries along the Ministry of Environment, it can be adequate consideration of environmental issues before actions are executed. There's also need for the government to improve its funding of the conservation of biodiversity and the environmental protection generally. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Said, for this, for the wonderful presentation. One of the keynotes of Dr. Said's presentation was that specifically Lagos State should rise to their duty in terms of considering environmental and biodiversity policies in order to promote sustainable environment in the state. So thank you so much, Dr. Said, for that wonderful presentation. Yeah, without wasting our time, we are going to move to the next aspect of the program, so which is question and answer. So we have we have one or two questions. But the first questions go to Dr. Tanya. So Dr. Tanya, though you've sent the test, but can you please respond to the question?
So it was to Mr. or I don't know, Suleiman. Did I say it right?
Yeah.
So I did write already in the chat. So yeah, thank you for the question. And it's a challenge to find the equilibrium. And therefore, like I said, it needs to be done in, I'm sorry, should I read the question?
Yeah.
It's better. So Suleiman Alamutu asked about the challenge of creating a balance between nature and human economic activities, and how can this balance be achieved without resulting to other crises. So it is a good question, and indeed it's a great challenge. And therefore, like I said, it needs to be done in a multidisciplinary way, involving experts in different areas of the problem. Like I said, ecologists, economists, environmentalists, politicians, but also people that are directly involved with those economic activities, and governments in order to best adequate to the reality of this specific problem. And I think it's also really important to look at long term of the activity. The measures cannot fix the problem just for the present. It needs to think about the years that are forward. So, and like I said, with the right whale, at first when there was some closures in the fishing activity, that year, of course, the lobstermen didn't have profits because they couldn't do their activities. But then in the following years, because it was given time for the lobster to grow and to reproduce, from then on, there were actually an increase in profits. And it's actually sustainable because there will be an increase in the coming years. So I answered.
Thank you so much. Yeah, the next questions go to Dr. Dr. Narij. Now, do you have tips on how local people can harness business from environmental issues? So people are asking for, can you give them some tips on how they can harness business opportunities from environmental issues? Yeah, Dr. Narij, go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes, I think as I pointed out in my presentation as well, I think the current circumstances, the whole world is focusing on sustainable solutions. And just as an example, I think Vishwas also pointed out to a few opportunities in the homes and in local communities. But I think
it's not, you need to increase the volume. I think we can hear Mr. Narij very well.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you now. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry about that. I think what I was saying is that there's the opportunity has presented itself in terms of all the sustainable initiatives that are being taken place around the world, and particularly in the developing countries. So there is a huge opportunity to do an inward focus as to what can a particular entrepreneur or business unpack in partnership with bigger businesses, but also look into their own communities where they could become almost self-reliant and self-developing to come up with solutions that could be a lot more cost-effective and could actually create a number of opportunities at grassroots level. If, as an example, if you looked at local waste collection in particular zones or in particular communities, you could create a waste collection through a community-based initiative, which could be funded through the local municipality, as an example, and there could be incentives and rebates put in place for that. If you look at things like working in partnerships with bigger corporations that are trying to produce certain ingredients of food grains for certain food products, it could be done from a community-based perspective. So it all depends on what the need is and how can that business or community initiative actually take advantage of that situation. And you know, we can discuss this further, but it would require some level of planning and some sort of analysis and some research to understand what is the most pressing need and what can be converted into economic benefit for that business or for the community. I hope it answers the question. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Narij. Yeah, the next questions go to Dr. Saheed, and the question reads that what's your thought on how that how can we bring policy regulators to this note, and how can they be considering all this in their regulations? Dr. Saeed.
How can we bring regulators to?
Yeah, how can we bring policy regulators to biodiversity and environmental issues, and how can they be considering all this in their all what we have said here? How can they put them into practice?
Okay, first, thank you very much for that question. I think first, like I've in the recommendation, is that it's really important that the regulators are they are properly educated first, because even if they have the adequate background, there's also need for them to be retrained and be and have that capacity to be able to deal with the modern day challenges. The challenges are really evolving over time, and there's also need for them to be able to use modern technologies to be able to deal with this problem. So there's need for them to have that proper understanding and proper knowledge first. And the other part is that it's not possible for them to deal with it on their own. Without adequate policy, there's implementation will never be effective. There will never be an efficient implementation if there. So there's to be more to develop more robust policies that deal with our challenges. Then that way it will be easier for the regulators to carry out their assignments efficiently.
Yeah, thank you so much. The next question goes to Dr. Vishwas. Yeah, you're talking about green recovery. So the question goes that how do you think technical personalities, the engineers, how do you think they can really harness some of these opportunities in green recovery, considering that some of the engineers might not have some other skills like social skills and environmental or biological skills? How do you think they can harness and they can really explore this green recovery? Thank you, Dr. Vishwas.
Thank you. No, I think, the green recovery is, of course, on a macro level, it's going to help all the countries. But on a micro level, at every city, every community, there's going to be a need for solutions. It can be in water, energy, waste management, all local sustainability, right? So that's something which is a huge business potential. Now, coming to technical skills, I think there are a lot of platforms today which are open source, which are available. If I can talk about circular economy, for example, there's something called Ubuntu, which is the world's largest platform on plastic waste management, and there's a lot of World Bank, GIZ. They all have a lot of technical information which are open source. I think it's important to first figure out what